So do we have a plan as a state party right now?
Well, we do have a number of committees set up to really take on these issues, including coalition building and grassroots organization. We have a committee that's dealing with, the vote by mail challenge. How do we do that better? We have one that's taking care of this like hot button issue that the state party in Disha was used incorrectly in primaries. We have another one that's basically reaching out to the younger set and the college age folks.
I know
So we
Kyle
have various
Stouter is kind of heading
committees.
that one up, right?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, he is. And so we have various committees that are looking at some of the core issues. Oh, we have one on completely on election integrity, a whole like. In fact, we hired somebody about election integrity. That's how important it is.
Can you talk?
And
Can you
and
talk a little
so
bit more
yeah.
about that one? That's one I definitely want to hear more about. In Illinois, because I have viewers that are outside of Illinois and they live in great states that are run by people that actually want integrity in their elections. What is the current issue of election integrity in our state, and what's kind of our strategy that we're going to attack that we're using to attack that?
Well, the biggest issue is obviously voter roll cleanup. I mean, the rolls are amazingly dirty, and that invites fraud. And then the other issue, which is going to be much more difficult, is some of the legislation that the Democrats have put in over time through their omnibus legislation, and then also specific legislation. Let me give you a specific example. In the
Hmm.
2022 election, when Deanne Mazzocchi lost a very, very close race, she started to look at how they were challenging, how they were looking at voter signature verification on vote by mail. And she found out that they were not looking at the signatures of the voter when they signed up to vote. Instead, they were looking at the signature of the voter when they requested the vote by mail ballot. Well,
Mm.
that's not a good process. And so she took it to court, and the judge basically said this process absolutely invites fraud. You can't self sign the same document essentially that you use to verify your signature with, which is the ballot application should not be matched against the actual ballot envelope that was turned in. There should be a separation. You should go back and look at the actual signature of the registered voter. And guess what the legislature did? They went and they passed legislation making that a legal way to verify the signature.
Got
That's
it.
Illinois. I mean, so we
Hmm.
are way behind on this. So the best thing we can do is make a concerted effort to clean up the voter rolls and track these voters.
That and then the other thing I would say even is making sure that we have good conservative Republicans that are well trained in being election judges
Yes.
and being at the polls, so we can do our best to watch out for either well make sure that we're checking the signatures in the way that we can, but then also just watching for any of those possible issues of lacking election integrity. Very interesting. I didn't know all that about the change in the law. Um,
Mhm.
so I want to talk. We've got a few more minutes here before we have to take one of our last breaks. But Don Tracy has been at the center of a lot of discussion back after the 2022 elections. A lot of people blamed him for our losses, as everybody was looking for somebody to blame within the Republican Party. And I had heard from obviously people in my area that were much more critical of the current chairman of the Illinois GOP. Uh, what's your kind of stance on that issue? What do you blame? I guess I hate to just focus on who we're blaming, but what happened in 2022? Why is the mistrust or unhappiness with Don Tracy, is that misplaced? What are your thoughts?
Listen, when Don applied for the position, given the choices, I was happy to support him, and
Hmm.
he gave me a call and I said, Don, I'm happy to support you. Listen, I tell you what, we need to make some significant changes. One thing, especially when it comes to communications, we just do not take the communications on. Like literally, if it's possible, and I don't even know if you can have a cell phone in there, but somebody should be literally live tweeting from the ComEd 4 corruption trial.
Hmm.
I mean, on the state party side, we should have somebody down in Springfield right now live tweeting about every single budget discussion that's actually not happened. We need a bigger, better comms presence, and we need to actually spend money on doing that. And so I would say if people aren't hearing our message, it's because we are not putting it out consistently and loud enough. And that actually does matter. I think when people do hear the truth, they will pause and they will think about it. and you can win some over. And so we've got to work on that. I think comms has been a big failure. I
Hmm.
think money's always been hard to raise in the state. So, hard to say that. I think the Republican Party going forward, we need to pick about 2 or 3 things that we're going to be really, really good at in 2024 so that we can bring home as many votes as possible.
Makes sense. Is the state party, or is the I'm sorry, not the state, is the national party to blame for any of that? What is it? What is the national party's role in our state party?
Well, it's interesting because you have Rona McDaniel out there saying that candidates who failed to take on the abortion issue head on basically had, 300 and some $1 million spent against them in last year in
Hmm.
2022. And I essentially said the same thing at our state central committee meeting back in March, I think it was. And I said, look, if you can't articulate your position and make an argument and not hide from it, then we're going to get slaughtered on that issue again. We have to have a response to that issue, and the national the national party has a role in helping bring the Republican message down to every single level, because people tend to pay a lot more attention to some of the national issues. They'll maybe know Dick Durbin and they don't know their local alderman.
Hmm.
I mean, that's just the case, or who sits on their school board, or they'll mix up who's their state rep with a congressional guy. I mean,
Yep.
so they're paying attention to kind of these national issues, and the Republican Party at the national level needs to communicate down to the lowest level. And if they have the firepower to do it, more
Hmm.
so than us in
Than our single
Illinois, but
state
we have a lot to
party.
say.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, in the next segment, I want to talk a little bit more about breakthrough ideas, your event on air, so we can make sure everybody knows exactly how to get in touch with you and in touch with that event. Everybody, we will be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal.